During this section, I'll explain my processes when it came to Pixart, how I started from very simplistic styles and animations and moved my way towards more complex styles. In terms of animating in my own style, I'm pretty comfortable, but when it came to Pixart, I had to reteach myself. Pixar has more restrictions than digital art would have because I have to make sure that all the pixels are cohesive and they remain the same, so I have less liberties when it came to that. I also had to kind of start off simple, so I do simple stuff, and then began to stylize it more and more and more, so I get used to making more complex designs before it came to me actually making my own character. So I started off with basic movements and moved on to more complex stuff, and then at the end, I show myself as a pixel just to get an idea of what style I would want to go for. During this section, I start to go in more detail when it comes to actually creating the character of Little Red. Sadly, I didn't get to record this, but I'll try and explain the processes, and during the wolf design, I'll actually discuss it more. Here's the sprite I created for Little Red, who's the main character. As you can see, her face isn't detailed at all, but that's actually a stylistic choice. And my main focus for design was shape orientated. I wanted to make sure the silhouette was really good. Um, when I was making her, I learned so much of PixArt. I learned the canvas matters. Here, I just winged it, and then that's gonna have knock-on effects. But I'm really pleased with how she turned out. I liked the shading. I learned shading was different. Shading was way different than when you do your own art. My process started with having this basic shapes. As you see with the wolf, I just have the basic shape and then slowly build on the details with that. So I'll move on to the wolf and actually show you the process and discuss it more. During this section, I can actually go in more detail of how I actually made the wolf and my actual process when it came to creating my sprites. Sadly, I didn't record the Little Red one, but I think that's an advantage because then I can show you a more polished version and show you what a process I've already realised. But I kind of wish I realised I could screen grab before this because I wanted to show my learning process and how I taught myself this, but I'll go into more detail soon. As you can see, I take the already made Little Red sprite and then I began to go over it just to make sure certain details are cohesive, like the head. And here I faffed about trying to make it bigger, but I realised it's better just to keep it the same size. And then I show you the process I mentioned beforehand of making sure the silhouette is important. I had to make sure I have the shape good first before I actually put in details. So here I'm just for trying to figure that out. Another thing I wanted to make sure was that he was taller and skinnier than her, because he's the opposite of her. He's her opponent, her opposite, so he has to be completely different through body shape, height, body language, like all this stuff is really important. Even the colors. The reason he's blue is so I have in my head the whole time opposite, different. I did this with the sketch beside me, but I didn't follow it to a T because sometimes my style doesn't translate too well when it came to PixArt. So I had to kind of wing it sometimes. And here I'm just going adding details of the jeans and things like that. One thing I really like is the shading and how I did the crisscross and how I always like gradients. Gradients are one of my favorite things in art. And I like adding it in through the crosshatch and the checkered way of doing it. I'm just going to let the video play as it starts to add more details of the clothing and the shading of the clothing and stuff like that. A thing you may notice is I toggle between the grid and turn it on and off. The main reason for this is it helped me when I was outlining and make sure everything was symmetrical because that's really important of PixArt. But it got really distracting when it came to adding details such as the shading and things like that, as it like kind of skews your view. So that's the reason why I toggle back and forward. I don't know if you noticed, but around this part I struggle with the face a bit, with the details of it. Like, where do I add the shading? If I add shading in the mask, it'll just take up a lot of it. how detailed do I want the mask, how much do I want the mask to cover up his face. Because in his original design, it actually covers half his face as a medical mask with an actual wolf face on it. But I'm not able to add that detail here because it's too small. Here, I really, really struggle with the hat. It's the view of the hat. I can't do this straight on because then that's just a line across his head. But if I do it to the side, then it looks like it's just, it just looked really weird. Like there, it kind of looks okay, but it gets weirder and weirder. And it just didn't look right no matter how much I tried it. So I had to step away from it for a bit and come back. And this is me coming back to it here. And I found a view that I actually really liked. And then here I'm just starting to shade it. But I'm really pleased with the hat turned out. It still looks a bit off, and I think that's the shading. But it's not too bad. It could be worse. But views is a big issue with Pixar, I've noticed. So that was a big, big issue. After adding the details of the shading to the character, I start adding more details like hair and stuff like that. And if you notice, it's the same shape as hers, but it's a contrasting colour again, because even though he's the opposite of her, I want some similarity. So she has a hood, so he has a hat. She has purple hair that contrasts, so he has green hair that contrasts. And here I'm just using the template of her beneath to do the different views, because still I have to make sure the style is cohesive and the way the poses have to be cohesive. Even though they're different characters of different heights, I have to have some cohesivity and similarities. So here I'm just adding details and messing about with that. And then throughout the video, that's just me working on different views. Another wee detail I don't think you've noticed, but with the actual outline of the character, I actually changed some of the hues. I add lighter bits and darker bits, just because if I had it one sort of colour, it's not as visually interesting, I think. I think adding a bit of, like, different hues, different colours in the outline itself actually brings more life to it and actually makes it more interesting looking. And having the outlines actually coloured, I think it makes it more vibrant, because just having the black outlines is very, not boring, but it doesn't have a pop of colour or like the brightness I want this to have. So that's a little detail I liked a lot. Here's his final outcome, and I'm actually pleased with how it came out, but it's not as scary as the sketch of him is. But during this process, my actual concept was the characters and the gameplay itself are very simplistic, but the dialogue box at the bottom would have an avatar that's very detailed. So for that, I'm pretty pleased. But there's some things I could work on, like his arms stretched out aren't proportionate, so that's things I'd work on. But after this, I moved on to doing environment things and experimenting with that. So the next video will discuss that.